Now, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I am Nerder Doug, and tonight I am deriving nutrients at the expense of this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
Fantastic. It's another awesome Monday, which is another fresh start of the Nerdarchy week. And we had a great meeting today, and now we're getting to talk about Parasites, which I alluded to in my intro, which is an interesting topic that you proposed. So I'm curious, as much as the people watching are, to.
So this is the foundation for this is like, it seemed like for a little while, like everything that I was watching started having these parasites or little things that were parasitic in nature. And I was seeing it in fantasy shows, seeing it in sci-fi shows, and I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool. And then literally last night, I was watching something that was more modern, and there was a parasite in that one too. And I'm like, holy crap, it's like literally all over the place, in just
They're everywhere.
Just what I happen to be watching. And I don't want to give anything away, so there will probably be some spoilers for shows and stuff that are out there.
Okay.
So be warned if you're into that, but I'll give you notice.
Were they in all the cases, are they always like a detrimental thing, or is there any kind of like where they were?
Well, I mean, to some extent, there are, a parasite does have the capability of bestowing, some positive effects on, the host, if you will. And in one of the shows, the more sci-fi-esque version, it absolutely did. It actually wound up being like a brain parasite, and it basically dialed up the person to be like a superhero. In not a superhero show, the brain fired faster, it gave them more strength because it basically cut off the limits of
is it that Limitless show?
Was it?
Is it that show Limitless?
No.
I haven't watched it, but when you said that maybe.
I honestly, it was like several weeks ago that I tossed this idea out there. I'm trying to remember what the name of the show
is. Only because I know that's like a pill that sort of like just removes that same thing. It's just like the limitations on your thinking and stuff are gone.
I mean, when you break down human biology, we have the ability to push ourselves to ridiculous proportions when a child is in danger or a loved one is in danger, and like your body then suffers that strain later and you got to deal with it later. But like if you could just turn that off, your body might learn to recover faster and what have you from it, but you've got the ability to push beyond, and that that was a cool thing. And I'm like, all right, as always, whenever I'm doing things, I'm like, how can I D&D-ize this thing?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's a totally cool concept in that way too, because it's like, it's could be considered, it's just a cool DM resource. It could be beneficial or detrimental, but it's like an interesting, it's not like an object that you hold. It's sort of like almost like a body horror elements, a bit like, I want this thing like in me, living off of me, and it's like, does it have some ulterior motive, even if it's helping me? And
so like according to Merriam-Webster.com, an organism living in, on, or with another organism in order to obtain nutrients, grow, or multiply, often in a state that directly or indirectly harms the host.
Often, but not always. So there's some wiggle room there. That's cool.
Right. Yeah. So like that was the thing I pulled up. I'm like, all right, let's define this and then see, how it might extrapolate. I actually I dove down into the annals of previous editions and pulled out.
Okay. Let's
pulled out an old third edition book to kind of
take me on a journey, Ted.
So I mean, if you want to, I'll go into it now. Expanded Sonic's Handbook from third edition 3.5, page 68. There is a disease called cerebral parasites, spread by contact. And this, I'm just going to read the rules, and then we can extrapolate what that would be for fifth. Spread by contact with infected psionic creatures. It's spread by contact. DC is 15. Incubation is 1d4 days, and the damage is 1d8 power points. Cerebral parasites are any organisms undetected to normal sight. An affected character may not even know he carries the parasites until he discovers that he has few power points for the day than expected. Psionic creatures with cerebral parasites are limited to using each of their known powers only once per day instead of freely manifesting them. See the note about diseases. Characters can gain negative levels, blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, all right, so a disease that extracts power points. And for those who didn't play third edition, psionics was more along the lines of how the DMG offers spell points,
right?
Which is in one of the optional roles. And I'm trying to see if I have my notes here as to
like where it is in the book.
Page 288 in the DMG. You can look at.
You really went all out for your notes on this one.
Well, I mean, I have that there because of my druid that I played in Steven's game, because he did the spell points.
Oh,
now imagine a disease that either ate your spell points or ate your spell slots, and you might not get a say in the matter, and you might not have a clue until like, oh, I finish a long rest, and it's like, oh, when you refresh, today mark off one of your first levels as already consumed.
And that was just real quick. That was Alex. I'm not going to derail you, but like that was one of my points too. Just like it's such a small thing that it's like it's like a fun mystery for the players to just say that. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, today mark off a first level spell slot as expended, and then don't say anything more. Like, we'll be confused. All right, the next day, you roll and determine, okay, what did it consume today, and you can figure out what kind of limitations you're putting on that, and like so. I guarantee you that's what I'm writing up for my newsletter. A magical parasite that will either consume spell points via the DMG rules or the consume spell slots. So it would be equivalent, and it's not going to be fun. And I will find it time to use it.
Yeah, and along with that cool like mechanical twist. You can kind of like reward the players biting on the hook by like, just being a little more revealing, a little more, right? Like, you just say, oh, you mark off this thing. And, if they're curious or whatever, you might say like, well, you start to think about it. And it's like, it feels like, just parts of your mind are fuzzy or, whatever, just however you want to describe what this thing is doing. So you can kind of like give them a clue what's going on, but you're not just telling them. So, like we always like that. Then it just leads to like those player motivated situations where like, okay, we got to figure out what's going on here and stuff. Right.
Absolutely. And those are the fun things that I feel like, fifth edition really hasn't had a lot of things that are there. With, again, this book, it's listed as a disease, and I wouldn't want to go down that road and call it that.
Because it's lay on hands away from ending.
I cast lay on hands or remove disease, and poof, it's gone. Curses, diseases. I mean, once you get up in level, even exhaustion is like, oh, whatever, no big deal. You can just.
Although I will say, that could be fun too, in the sense of like, so there's just I think it's an Xbox game. I saw it on Steam there. It's called Green Hell. And it's just like sort of a jungle exploration survival game in like a modern day. And I was talking to my brother about it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he's like, it's too intense and like realistic in the sense of like, every couple of minutes you might have like contracted, so like of you sitting there playing, you might have like contracted some parasitic disease and be like on the brink of death. So it's it's just like super slow paced." But in a D&D or an RPG setting, maybe you just have an area that's affected by, and not with that frequency, but it is sort of like an extra challenge, and it's not so much ham-fisted because it's like, well, it's just peculiar to this area, but it does sort of like give you that resource drain thing. Like, do you want to use 5 points of your lay on hands today to cure this, or do you want to live with having down a spell slot or whatever, right? Yeah. So it's like just a fun extra, harrowing risk on the adventurer's part.
But what if it gets worse? Like, what if the parasite has the ability to grow and spread, and not only spread to you, so it does even more spell slot damage, but like you could then spread it to others, and they could begin having it. Or what happens if it goes to the fighter, and the fighter who doesn't have any spell slots, he just becomes this breeding ground, not really knowing what's going on, and all of a sudden, like, oh, we'll bed down for the night, and next thing you know, everybody's got it. Like,
that's so many interesting things. And I like those sort of things, because the way we sort of like play and run our games, it's a little bit open-ended. It's like, oh yeah, I have some ideas how they could get rid of this thing, right? But it's like, but I also think it's fun to see what players do. Maybe they would think it was some sentient thing inside them and like cast detect thoughts or something, or even try to see if they could detect something in themselves, or if somebody, sometimes characters want to, their character's concept is that they're really good at like mundane medicine, and they do like a full body check and stuff, which could really simulate that like survival part of the game too, if you didn't have magic for everything.
And the other thing, and because of what you said, this is kind of spurred me off.
Go
here. But there are times where somebody makes a comment, and whether it be in game or out of game, but they speculate on what they think the problem is. And sometimes the problem is, so much more fun, interesting, or bizarre than what you had initially created. And since they hadn't figured it out, be like, okay, I'm switching. That's what I'm doing now.
Oftentimes, much more when those situations happen, in my experience too, it's like the thing the players think of is like much more challenging even to overcome than I thought, which, isn't so much like a punishing thing, but like a cool thing if they take on that challenge and do those things. It's like fun as a GM to think like, wow, they're really invested in this thing. They think it's that serious. So it's cool.
On a tangent, CDPs showed up. I'm shocked to see Doug's naked face.
My Eastern European blood gives me quick follicle growing capabilities, so every so often I just gotta get a clean slate and see what happens. Grows back pretty quick.
You don't have any beard parasites?
Maybe that could be as follicle parasites from the beard dimension live inside my chin.
I mean, we already know that there's lamp lice.
Yes.
Such a place. So
who knows? For all you know, Cups, I could have I could look like the guy from ZZ Top next week when you come back. Not that fast, but still.
I don't grow quite as I don't grow my facial hair quite as fast as Doug does. But I mean, I've got
it's looking good. I dig it.
Going on, so
I dig it.
It's staying for a while. We'll see what the future holds.
Yeah. Parasites to me, it's interesting. Or it makes sense to me, I guess. Like in the earlier editions, that had like a psionic element, because they do sort of have like a sci-fi-ish bent to them as well. Like whether they're like from a meteor that's like crashed on Earth, or an alien, or escape from some like weird Stranger Things style lab or something.
Sure.
It's just like a creepy sci-fi type element. It's invisible to the naked eye, which makes it like extra creepy because you can't see it. Absolutely. Most times, or unless they grow, which is cool, like the Blob from the old movie.
If you really think about it, though, there's already so much more sci-fi than you're thinking about within the games of D&D. I mean, when you look at racially, you've got the Simic hybrid. Backgrounds. There's a couple different choices that could get you alchemical supplies or tinker tools. All of those could technically,
or even like medicine expertise. I mean,
when you get to class level, you have artificer. I mean, that's the closest you're going to get to sci-fi class wise. Then subclass, there's a handful of things, and I know myself in Dave's game, we did our session 0, and I'm going to be playing a elemental mutation sorcerer, which one of the Nerdarchy created subclasses over on the website.
What is it that? Is that in Lost Lore 2?
No, it's on the website. Steven did it.
Oh, is it? That one. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like it's doubling down on the concept of, hey, somebody modified you. So the character started off as human, and I've put together what my mini looks like on Hero Forge because I love Hero Forge. And nothing about the thing looks like it should be human. It's kind of got this yellowish goldish skin. It's got black tiger stripes all over its exposed skin.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
Because I love long hair. It's always been a thing of mine.
Yeah. Cat,
so
you like cat-like things as well?
I do. So like I went with the option that has like the long hair, but only at like the top.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Everything else is bald. And then some brightly colors, and it's a sorcerer, so he's got an orb in one hand and spell energy in the other.
It's so much fun playing around with Hero Forge. I was just doing that today. I made a nightlight.
Oh, nice.
And the way you can play with the color, it's sweet. He had like different like neon colored like lines going down his suit, but like it was all white and stuff.
Oh,
yeah, it was like,
you'll have to get me a screenshot when you're
sure.
done.
It's funny. I put it on Facebook, and this childhood friend of mine who's now a Guinness Book World Record holding whip master.
Oh, sweet.
And he was like, hey, can they do like an off-center mohawk, because that's sort of like his signature hairdo and stuff, and he has like really cool stage gear and everything. I was like, yeah. I'm like, I put the link in there. I was like, it's got and I bet you it blew his mind, because it's like they do have whips and juggling things, chainsaws, which I think he juggles flaming chainsaws. That's like his
wow.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah, he's got some hangers, and just like bowling pins and all the things that you can put around the base, with the color and everything. It still blows my mind that they print them in color. I don't know enough about technology to know if that's like, as high tech as I think it is, but I never see any other stuff like that, and it's just like, man, that is so cool.
I adore it. I love, I've got a shelf over here full of my Hero Forge minis. And for the most part, that's my staple now. If I start a new campaign and I can make the character on Hero Forge, I make it, I buy it. I get it. We haven't finished the campaign yet for my kids' game because we had some.
That's been going for a while though, right? It's been like a couple of years, I think.
We were supposed to finish that, the Monday after Christmas, and we had an issue with one of the players having to quarantine, so we haven't rescheduled yet. But once that's done, then we're moving on to a new game, and my kids are excited because they've already made their characters in Hero Forge, even though they haven't made characters on D&D Beyond yet.
Has it been like 2 years? I mean, I know you don't play like every week and stuff, but it's like that group's been playing for a while.
2 to 3 years, but it's very, very loosey goosey with.
That's awesome though, to have that kind of longevity.
Yeah, I know it's definitely a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing that go by to the wayside, so I can have better DM notes. Because when I started that game, I wasn't doing quite as well. I didn't have a structured program of what I do for GMing, and now I do. So it's like, all right, this is how I do it. This is what happens. And I know it was like 2 years of campaign 3 that I was running. So it was before that we started that game.
So this isn't about Parasites per se, but we also like to strain to like just tips and advice and questions, and if anybody has any questions, throw them in there with a question. I'll be happy to answer. But I'm excited. I have some things to share just from my home game that I played last night, because it's just fresh on my mind. That maybe
go for it.
So it's funny. It's like my brother who hasn't played RPGs in decades, and a few people from my old home Spelljammer game, and we haven't played together in a few years. And like I was, so like they're not like, they're casuals basically. In other words, they're not like, they don't follow blogs or, I don't know everything that's going on about everything like we do. Not to brag or anything, I'm just, giving context. So I really went in thinking like, okay, I'm going to like make a conscious effort to like do the stuff that we suggest people do, that we give out as, advice of how to do things. And it worked so great. I was like, because they were all like, oh yeah, we should play just like all the time, because they were just new and excited, and like 2 or 3 times a week. And I was like, let's play 3 weekends a month, and then we'll take the 4th one off. And I was like, maybe if we want to get together and just chat on Zoom, but whatever. and like we'll do it on this day and blah blah blah. We'll just assume it's always this day, and I like made a schedule, and I was like, and we had a session 0, and we decided, I was like, well, let's just decide on how many sessions we want to play, and they wanted to play like just indefinitely, like a lot of people do. And I was like, well, think of it this way: it's like a TV show. It's the pilot season. We're put all the cool stuff that we think, that we come up with in our session 0 into this. And then if we want to, if it gets picked up for a second season, we'll keep playing, right? But at least we'll know we're going to tell like a cool story in these, we said 6 sessions. But like a cool, my favorite development, this whole thing with this group is by selling them on that, after our games, we'll just chat and everything. And people were asking about different RPGs and different games, or like maybe they would run a game sometime. They're like, yeah, if we're only doing like 6 sessions at a time, like, we could switch off all the time and play different games. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Because I like amongst all these people, I'm always the forever DM. Like even the 2 people I used to play with, they never DM'd. One guy did a couple times, but so it's just like it's working. Like, so I feel more confident about like, yeah, we do give out good advice, because I was like, I'm doing this totally working way better than I expected. They naturally want to like switch off and like, I'll DM next time. It's like, yes.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's one of the joys of having groups where people are willing to step up. And our Tuesday nights are a perfect scenario of that, where you have everyone is a fantastic GM. Everyone is willing to, step up and do their time within the chair. And, it might not all be even. Not everyone's crazy like Steve and be like, I'm going to do 2 12-session arcs back to back, different rule sets and what have you.
Yeah, really, that is quite an undertaking. I must give props for that.
I enjoy running. Other than this past, Dungeons and Delving, I haven't run a weekly game in years. Like to me,
really,
I mean, prior.
Oh yeah, because you guys wrote that. Oh yeah, because you and Dave always play together, but it's like different groups.
Right, it's different groups, but it's different DMs, different stories. So it's not like I was running 3 games a month.
Right.
Time off. It was I ran 1 session a month. So like even if like the kids were meeting once a month, my group was meeting once a month. The Chaos Crew, was meeting once a month. That's still only 3 games a month. If it was all going together, not too big a deal. Whereas, like, running every Tuesday, I'm like, all right, not that I can't do it, but it was like, all right, I need to figure things out, and more work needed to be done before we started. And I definitely had to be on top of it to make sure like I can keep that up. Like Dave was doing the Scarlet Sisterhood and Saber Dice, so like he had more of those things that was keeping him more on point, where I didn't
as a GM specifically. Yeah. But I gotta say, like we talk about all the time, and behind the scenes and on cameras, and advocate for like there's a responsibility being a player too, and even though you're not GMing all those games, you always bring it as a player with gusto, and that means a lot too, And
like that whole group does that. The players come to play, and the GM comes to run. And that's one of the things I think like all groups should really strive for. That kind of layer of involvement, and
I would say it's rotating GMs probably goes a long way towards that, because when you're GMing, when you're playing, you're not only like seeing how somebody else does it different, not better, but just like, oh, I like how they did that. And also, if everybody's a GM, then I think it makes you a better player, because you know what it's like to be that GM. Be like, okay, I should participate here, because like I want to know this thing about the world or whatever, or even just in a meta sense, like, well, they probably have things they'd like us to do, so I'm going to do something. I'm going to take action.
You've got the capacity to say, as a GM, these are the things that I typically do, and therefore when I'm a player, these are the things that I'm going to do to help out. When someone else steps up to be the GM, it's more than likely that they're going to do things that you might not have thought of, and you'll learn things of, well, I'm going to make sure I never do this, or that I always do this from now on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, playing with other GMs is going to make you be a better GM because it's going to teach you something. And every single person that is run on this Tuesday channel, has something that I'm like that I look up to them for. We all have our strengths,
for sure,
and I love that. So I'm always looking to be like, all right, how can I improve?
Hey, I guess if we want to tie it to this thing, it's like a group like that really becomes parasitic of each other, where it's like, yes, I'm gaining knowledge and lessons from these people and growing as a GM and a player. And I'd like to say a person too, just kind of like putting yourself in other people's shoes and being more empathetic.
If you want to extrapolate it, players all fall into that parasitic role because they're leeching time, energy off of them. It's living in, on, or with another organism.
Yeah, that's true.
In order for nutrients to grow or multiply in a state that directly or indirectly harms the host.
Yeah.
I know you as a person, and I know that GMing can be stressful for you. It's stressful for me. I frequently get DM anxiety when I'm doing it. So the lead up time to it is where I am the most frazzled.
Oh yeah, yep.
So
it's sort of just like a general, like, if a session's coming, like, I'm gonna have to. I know I should plan something, but I'm also like a procrastinator, and it's like the day I was like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? Yeah. But then I always just tell myself, there's other people playing, and more often than not, if I know them, it's like I know they're good players, and it's like. Because my fear, like I've said many times, is like I can't just talk straight for 3 hours and like if people aren't engaging with me. So that's why. But I've learned to like even if I don't I don't spend a lot of time prepping, what I prep is like things that will engage the players. Like like in Cypher, it's like a GM intrusion is basically saying like it's your turn to do something, do it. Right?
Right. Exactly. So, and I hadn't really thought about it that way, but that's a perfect point of, if you play Cypher and if you're running Cypher, I should say, prepping those GM intrusions for when things wind up not moving or not going anywhere, that's actually, masterful. That's a great thought pattern.
Thanks.
I haven't done much of running with Cypher, so it's like I ran the No Thank You Evil.
Is it still the same basic thing where it's like the difficulty and the target number? It's just there's not a whole lot of extra fluff, or is it totally different than that?
It's dumbed down as opposed to rolling a d20. You roll a d6.
Okay.
So like I believe it as opposed to 1 to 30.
So the chits in the game, those are like your pool, basically. It's just a simplified version of that. Okay.
So they don't do the ×3 multipliers. You roll a d6, and things can get up to, I believe, a 10.
Okay.
So like if you don't have the assets and the chits to spend to be able to bring it down, you might have that still impossible task.
Wow, to me that sounds like it in my mind of different RPGs, like it would fall somewhere between Quest and Cypher, versus like it's a little more complex than Quest or similar because it's like very few resources, but it's basically your action points.
Yeah, it's smaller because everyone is used to the ye old typical D6. So therefore having kids roll a D6, that's going to be standard because a lot of kids play board games and whatever have you. Whereas like, I've got a D20 here. Well, what is that? Kids might not be used to, higher numbers.
Yeah.
That all of that nonsense.
Like a 20-sided die. It's like, how many sides are in this thing?
Whereas D6, it's solid.
Yeah, it's ubiquitous. Everybody knows what a D6 is.
So it's a lot
Cups, this isn't a question, but Cup says, intrusions is a way to place GM dice rolls sometimes, like the mysterious, like, I'm just going to roll the die, which is true. But, just to toot our own horn, all of our recent products, that actually is part of the module, is we just call it something happens. And because, this way we like to run games is like, here's a bunch of just elements to sprinkle into wherever the players are, whether it's like a village or walking down the road or a dungeon. And, we kind of like to give players that space of like, now they explore, you tell them what's around and they play in it. And it's just like, okay, well, when that gets boring, that's when something happens, and it's just like, it's unavoidable. It's sort of just like, you have to react to this thing. Actually, tangent on tangent, I was listening to Jim WebDM's video the other day, which was just Jim answering questions and stuff. And he mentioned something that Dale Kingsmill uses in her game. She just will say like click to the players, and they know like that means you have like 10 seconds to tell me what like if something's about to happen that you must you can't hem and haw. You just have to make a decision right then. I was like, that's just stuff like that where it's like you're just making the players like, here's agency, it's your turn, you do something like what are you doing? Like, don't hem and haw, just tell me what you're doing.
So there's definitely a lot of different directions that that can happen in. I don't typically have a whole lot of experience with that, but the something happen, that's an easy solution for groups that do have that that back and forth, and they won't make a decision. Be like, dude, all right, whether you have a set timer or look, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to roll dice, and until I, when I get the target number, if you haven't made up your mind, something's going to go. Whatever solution you feel is going to work for you as the DM, that's what you can do.
I think the first time we used it, it was while I was on our Dark Paths, and it was the Dreamweaver one, and it was just like it's just a sort of a move things along device, but there's like a dream orb that has the memories of the person who has it, who just like stumbles forward and dies. And it's like hidden on their person. And I think the something happens was just like, they're dead, but they just had like a last gasp, and they just like whichever character's staying nearby, he just like bolts away, sticks it in your hand, and then falls back. And then you get the memories from that, which, maybe it'll lead them on, or if, hopefully the idea is it's like that piques their curiosity enough to be like, what did I just see in my mind? And if it doesn't, well, then, maybe your players need to step up, because it's like, that's pretty interesting. But just the fact that it's like, you can, like, it's just an unavoidable thing. Because, like, spoiler alert, when you're the GM, you can just do stuff like that. That's my MO. When everything's just going along all hunky-dory, and then, boom, something happens.
So, Parks says, to incorporate GM intrusions into D&D, would you just grant an advantage instead of an XP? Do you mean inspiration? I mean, that would be an easy thing. But truthfully, there's nothing about D&D unless you're trying to break the combat. You could just literally, as we kind of do in our product, something happens. Insert more bad guys. That sucks for the players, but there's no mechanic for that to have to reward them. They get the XP if they deal with that. Now, if you're saying that, oh, your sword breaks when there was no roll about it, nothing going on, well, that's when you might want to give something else in return, an inspiration, or something where it's like, all right, you're going to deal with this hardship now, but there is something down the road to improve that. And I've definitely done that with players players in the
that's a pretty cool twist, where it's just like, because I was thinking too, it's like, well, usually it's something external. It's just like it's right in your face. But that would be a cool house. I mean, I would discuss that with the players. But like, hey, what if we do things like that? Where like, I might have your sword break or something, but like, I'm not trying to penalize you. It's like just to give you a cool challenge, and it's just to make it a little more challenging and fun and heroic, because you made it through that moment, even though your sword broke and everything. You still like killed the demon with like the shard that was left or whatever. That's awesome, man.
Cups has got like that could absolutely be a nat one kind of thing. But if that wasn't prompted by a nat one, and you want to do something, if your players trust you, they know that things will be set right. All's happy in the kingdom. Now, if you have players that are not familiar with your particular style and you do something like that, they will feel that oh, are you targeting me? Or they might just, as opposed to ask, just straight up tell you, or like talk behind your back. So it's good to have these kind of conversations. Of like, this is something that I'm interested in doing. If you have already had your session 0 and this is an interesting concept that you want to take, have a conversation with the players before the next session. Be like, look, I just came up with this idea, or I heard this idea, and I'd like to do these kinds of things. I'm not trying to target, I'm trying to offer unique challenges. But if you trust me as a GM to do it, there will be rewards on the other side of the challenge, as there always are for, typical games.
Yeah, and I guess, it's just a different play style too. I was sort of thinking as you were speaking there, like, if your play style involves like the players already being really proactive, whether they're like the kind of people that are, if you're doing a dungeon crawl, they're looking for traps, they're, trying to be safe and quiet and everything. But, one thing that, our Tuesday night group and a lot of the people that, I'm sure in your home groups and mine are too, have in common is like, well, that part isn't that exciting to us anymore. So I don't prep content like that, because I know the players don't really care either. They don't want to just be like, okay, I'm going to move 10 feet and make another perception check and look for traps. And I'm going to move it. It's like, that's just not fun. So having more of like that trust level where they know like, okay, well, when we're playing, we're basically just exploring the environment and our GM's describing, what we see. And then, I just have prepped things like that, like something happening to just give them something fun and exciting to deal with. And I like to see how it turns out. But I have sort of derailed your thing, and I know did you have any other parasitic ideas that you wanted to explore?
I do, and let's see who I want to give credit to here. Christopher was saying, what if there's ever any parasitic familiars in this edition? Like a crappy familiar can't send back, or if it dies, it just comes back to life. I back a whole bunch of Kickstarters, and sometimes they get put up on the shelf and never touched again. And other times they get pulled out numerous times. So it really depends on things. But as going back to my kids' game,
sure,
they love pets, they love familiars, they love collecting things, and most of that is now just my daughter. But my son was really into it when he was younger. But I got Zargoth's Tome of Familiars.
Oh, that sounds intriguing.
And going to page 36 has Aberrant Symbiotes.
And,
you can.
Ooh, that's a cool. I like the sound of that already.
Yeah. So each of these things has a thing where you form a symbiotic bond with an aberrant creature. While the creature is bonded to you, it is considered part of you and cannot move, take any actions, or lose hit points. If the creature is destroyed, it regrows attached to you over the course of a long rest. When you choose this feat, select one of the following creatures to bond with: a spine worm, a silent lurker, a gibbering arm, widow's blades, or a siren's tail. You can take the feat multiple times, selecting a different option each time. So the gibbering arm basically is like a gibbering mouther, but it's meant to replace a missing arm.
Oh, wow. Man, so if you played like a fighter or rogue, you could snatch up a variant human fighter or rogue, you could snatch up all those feats pretty quick and be pretty bizarre, I'm sure.
The silent lurker looks like a face hugger.
Oh, wow. Creepy.
Siren's tail is what you would think. It's literally gives you a tail.
Like your legs turn into a snake tail, or you just have an actual tail?
It attaches at your tailbone.
Oh, okay.
Like it's a tail.
Oh.
You've got a spine worm, which basically looks like it. You wind up having these tentacles.
Oh, wow. Super creepy.
You got widow's blades, which basically looks like you've got wings. The book has got a lot of really cool and interesting things in it, and symbiotes and parasites might not necessarily fall in the same realm.
They're close enough for our purposes.
For this, and these things are all like really interesting. And let's face it, we have always at Nerdarchy talked about offering feats as a kind of story reward. So like even if you didn't want to like make someone want to waste one of their feats, like they could encounter one of these things.
Yeah.
And they make the choice of, do you wish to bond or not?
It
has a prereq. It's supposed to have a con of 13 or higher if you wanted to take the feat.
There's on the Peacemaker show, I'll say, I don't know if this is a spoiler because I haven't seen the commercials, but it's pretty prevalent part of the show. But like, the main antagonists are like these alien parasites that like take over people and like live in their heads and stuff, and they capture one, and as you're saying, like that could be like an awesome reward where it's like, maybe you're fighting somebody that does have all those mutations. There's this horrible creature. It's like, oh my God. And then like, these parasites come out of them, and maybe you have one in a jar and study it. And then, you think like, I don't know, should we let this thing, do I want to let this thing? It's just those cool things that give players something to think about, where you're like putting the ball in their court of like, hey, you've got yourself a jar full of weird aberrant parasites. What are you going to do with those?
But you actually brought up, another point that I was going to make, and it's not necessarily a parasite, but like there are things throughout sci-fi where you get a parasite and it essentially takes over the host and destroys their personality to like it's your body, but it's everything else is unrecognizable. And there is something like that within core D&D that we've known about for many editions of the game, and that's the intellect devour.
Oh yeah.
That literally consumes the brain and lives inside the skull.
So creepy, man.
And I love them, as ridiculous as it is. I think the intellect devour is a really cool looking monster. Throughout the editions of the minis, like I've seen them in so many different scales, and the newest one is actually sized appropriate to.
What are they, small or tiny? No, they're tiny, aren't they? They're like a brain.
Because they're supposed to be a brain. They're supposed to be this big. It's a scenario where I'm like, all right, how can this thing that's this big get inside my head? Like,
like that MTV cartoon.
But it's an aspect of like, all right, it absolutely destroys the person, when they take it over, and it takes some serious magic to bring that person back to life.
Oh yeah, there's a iconic part of the first Neverwinter game, not the MMO, but when you're in Neverwinter and the jailer, you find out finally it's a really hard fight, and like you take him down to 0, and then the intellect devour pops out of his head and is like jumping all around the board trying to get you. That's an awesome monster, because it's like they're super powerful and weird and low level, and it's like anybody could be once you players find that out, especially like if they're first time players, it's like, wait a minute, that means anybody could have these things in them. What if I do? And like they're instantly paranoid.
So I for that reason, I absolutely had to make sure that they got a mention. There's not a huge amount of other things that fall into parasites that I can recall.
What about like rat grubs? I mean, that's similar concept.
I think of them as more like, a pest.
That's true.
I don't think they're not like bonding to you. They're trying to eat.
Oh yeah. I guess they're. It would be a cool take on a parasite as a sentient magic item. I mean, you could totally use those same sort of roles. It just happens to live in you or on you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a membranous shell that it forms around you, and just those same sort. If you wanted like an easy framework for like a mechanical thing, it's like they have intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. They have an agenda, a way to communicate.
To an extent, they're living, on you, with you. So that falls into that definition. Adventurers rely on their equipment, and it's relying on you. That technically forms a symbiotic and parasitic relationship.
True.
So it's really up to you. I think the ones that fall closer to the realm are cursed magic items, because then you don't.
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't really be able to get rid of it because you're cursed.
Right.
At the same time, like
sure.
It's not going to get rid of you, and it's got a detriment to you because it's cursed.
Yeah. Maybe in that way, like that, some of those, it's cursed items like demon armor and stuff like that. I don't remember exactly, but it's like, they hurt you. Or no, was it the one? Man, doesn't like just donning it, you take like 50 poison damage or something like that? Or
which one was that?
it's like scorpion armor or something.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, I think it's in the DM in the 5th edition, but it's like if you just putting it on, you just take like, or it's ridiculous, like 100 points of poison damage or something.
Oh, shite.
Like, well, hey, if you're a Yuan T, good to go, baby.
I'm gonna call out Parks' suggestion or his comment. I absolutely remember this, but my favorite symbiotic monster that I remember from AD&D 2E was called the Resplendent Cloaker. It acted like a ring of regeneration, but cost a permanent hit point.
Oh, that's cool! Like a symbiotic cloak. Yeah, man.
Yeah, those things were pretty awesome, and cloakers are just badass. But like they literally would affix themselves, if I remember, to like the base of your neck, and it was like a cloak. It was alive.
Cloakers seem to have evolved a lot. When I remember in 1st edition, if I remember correctly, like cloakers didn't have like a society and everything. It was just like, if there was a rack with a bunch of cloaks hanging on them, one of them might be a cloaker. Like they didn't have like an underground civilization and stuff like they do. I don't think they did, but I actually like that better. And because they're like large now, speaking of cloakers specifically, it's like that's 100% my favorite Nerdarchy. That's my favorite DM's Guild Nerdarchy encounter. We have so many different things with the Hag's Apprentice. I've run that. That's my Halloween game.
Nice. I like cloakers. Dave uses them far more than I do, but they are fun.
And they're weird. Like thinking that they have a society makes them even weirder. Like, why do they look like cloaks then?
So, I don't know. Like, I look at maybe there's a connection between mimics and cloakers that has never really been disguised. Maybe there's other things that are out there that kind of have that. Well, I've decided I'm going to take this shape. And
that's interesting.
Are they from another plane of existence and they've been stuck here, and maybe somewhere else they look different, but here they look like that?
Wasn't there an old school monster that was like took the form of like stone, like flagstones or something, and would like the head? I think it was called like a trapper or something. It was basically just a mimic, but
I don't remember off the top of my head, but that does sound familiar.
There is a lot of just like disguised objects, other things, and that's those are kind of things that just they're fun to put in games because it's like it'll just always be in the back of the player's mind, or like anything in this world could actually be a creature.
So like there's definitely enough things out there to be like, all right, I'm going to play the paranoid adventurer because I've heard too many darn stories.
That's a fun way to metagame like that, where it's just like, your character, like, as a player, like, yes, I know there's mimics and trappers and cloakers and all this thing. And like, that's what scares my guy. That's a pretty, I'm going to rate that. That's a fun character.
Cursed magic items and the likes. Like I was saying, I guess the magic. Don't touch it. Like the opposite of the adventurer that was like, oh, I need treasure and I need to go earn stuff. And
it would be like almost like Debbie Downer. It's like, there's rumors of like mimic treasure hoards too, or treasure hoard golems. Like that whole pile of treasure could come alive and kill us at any moment.
What if that treasure belongs to a dragon? He'll hunt us and kill us.
That might be a CBG to explore.
That is an interesting idea. We're getting down to our last 10 minutes. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show off, we have our session 0 for Shadow of the Demon Lord. We're trying out a new rule set.
Ooh, that's a big book. Huh?
Yeah, that's a decent sized. So I just bought this on Amazon. A little over 250 pages, 270, something like that.
I hear a lot of good things about that game.
So I absolutely know nothing about it. I've barely cracked open the spine with this book. It literally arrived today.
Oh yeah, you're running it?
No, gods, no. I'm just a player.
I thought maybe you were using that for your we're on a boat game.
No.
So we're on a bold undertaking.
We just had our session 0 for We Live on a Boat this past.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We decided, a fifth level game. There's five people in the party. We're gonna have a frog person College of Spirit bard, and he's playing a frog race out of the Boric Boros book. Something along those lines. It's called like a Coquin or something, but they're basically they're frog people that are like talkers to the dead.
That's interesting. Cool.
To the dead. So he's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Warforged barbarian who really is like an inhabited diving suit that fights with a giant anchor.
Ooh.
That's going to be Dave's character. We have
that's a cool concept.
One of the new people in the game. She's going to be playing either a druid or a paladin. Hasn't fully decided yet. My sister is going to be playing a rogue swashbuckler, very fitting for the pirate-esque setting. And God, I can't remember what Tally said he was going to play. But we've got a party that's being rounded out. So we'll see what things are going to be afoot. But you're definitely going to be hearing me talk about some aquatic stuff over the next, I guess, year at this point in time, as we give updates on this game. They decided on a 12-ish session arc, but the plan is, they live on a boat and they're running from whoever is hunting this particular relic, because the relic is going to have like the essence of a spiritual leader that is waiting to be reborn. And
that connects with that frog character a lot. Then, okay.
Tally is playing a Way of the Mercy monk.
Wow, that's a pretty interesting group. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
That one can connect to the the relic as well.
Yeah, you got the seafaring stuff. You got some like supernatural kind of occult type of elements in there, sort of like just that's like seems like a major component of just like the story anyway. But even like an inhabited diving suit. Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
And Parks, you get an extra inspiration because you made the joke that was made during our session 0.
Oh, really? Yeah, I saw that comment from Parks, but they said that during the thing too. That's great. I wonder if that was sort of like because in the place the options from is that part of like their lore that they have.
I don't know. I got access to the PDF today so that I can approve the race, which I have done. But as he's describing the character he wants to play, Tally is like he had to get it out before I did. I was too busy recording notes to try and work on the puns, but when they're just spitballing these ideas, and it's like, all right, they talk to you after you croak, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, good. I like this Tally character I'm hearing about. If he's a fellow punster.
Tally is absolutely good people.
Yeah, he actually is in the company of the Nag in our Facebook page. I see that name pop up. So.
And
so good on you.
So the group is having to protect this relic, and while the relic is on open waters, it's not detectable by magic. You can't scry for it.
That's a great twist.
So like, because the idea was live on a boat. I'm like, all right, if that's what we're doing, most of the adventure is going to be on the boat. So yes, you might dock here or dock there on occasion, but you're not going to the mainland. That's not what this adventure is.
That's a really clever thing to do, because it's like it's a cool story thing, but it also like puts a soft limit on things. Where like it behooves you not to get off the boat, which is what you said you wanted to live on a boat. So like, because sometimes that happens. We're like, oh yeah, we go from port to port and get off the boat. It's like, well, then you're not doing anything on the boat.
Right.
It's like, so, yeah, I want to be on the boat.
So I asked them like, what is the terror of the sea? And I purposely came up with this phrase to like leave it open-ended, because during a session 0, like I'm like, all right, this is your campaign.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me, you answer these questions, because this is what's going to come up. So I'm like, is it a sea serpent? Is it a monster? Is it a pirate? And all of their thoughts went, with this concept of a pirate. And it went from, one person said Ahab. It was like, no, it's the white whale. And the white whale concept wound up turning into this albino GIF pirate lord. And I'm like, all right, so we've got this pirate and his crew that are going to be on the capacity of what, at least to begin with, what the party is going to be able to deal with. So like I've been very enthused to work on, conceptually. Haven't made any mechanics for this guy yet. But all the different notes and stuff that I've taken on him since Saturday has been a lot of fun to kind of brainstorm and what have you.
Oh yeah. Isn't that so much fun to do those kind of sessions, or even during play, like we say, like just listen to the players and then like, between sessions, like, well, how am I gonna like take all these little points that they mentioned and like spin them together in a cool way, and then the next time you play, they'll take what you come and they'll remix it and add their own ingredients to it. It's crazy like that.
The fun challenge that they kind of put forward, because I asked them like, all right, they didn't want this to be a heavy resource management game.
Yeah, where they're worried about like how much food they have all the time and stuff.
So like there's the stipulation of like, I can go ahead and add that in, of like, that could be the hardship this session, but it's not going to be, I need to track ammunition, and do I make more arrows, or do we have to go, hunt for 3 hours this particular session just to have food? Like, all right, great. I was glad that they didn't want to go in that direction.
That's actually, I think I don't remember if we chatted about it or whatever, but in the game I'm running, it's at the beginning of every session, I do probably only play 2, but like I do an intro and then I have them recap, or the other way around, and then I have them roll on the ship quirks table, which isn't like a mechanical thing, but it's just sort of like, well, if there's an intrusion or just, to give them something to role play, it's just like there's 20 things, and it's just like, what's wrong with your ship this week, because it's just like, it's not awesome. So yesterday the alarm was stuck on, and so then when they were going in, like to the dock at the port, they're like, the people at the terminal are like, why is your alarm going off and stuff like that, and there's just something they had to deal with, and it wasn't like dangerous, but it was just a fun little thing. So that sounds like, you can do that, like just have them roll like, well, this week your food's low, and it's like whatever else is going on, also you have to deal with that.
So the thing that I asked about next was like the weather. Like the weather is an enemy and a friend when you're out there on the water. So it's like, well, do we want that narratively driven or dice driven? And they're like, well, I don't want to have you create material and then it's like, oh, we absolutely need to get to shore, and clear and open skies is what you roll. So like it was decided like that I would roll in advance and then prep my material for that, which I find that bizarre. I've never played that style before, of like, okay, well, you're trusting me to roll randomly and plan accordingly. So that gives me the liberty to like, okay, well, this is
just do whatever you want.
But like, I'm a fair GM and I'm going to do what's there. But because nobody sees the roll, like, it could literally be like, oh, what do you know? I got exactly what I wanted to.
Yeah, right.
There it is. Oh,
well, to the credit of the core material of the game that you're playing that campaign in, all their tables usually say the same thing too, because ultimately that is what they are for. It's like, if you have a bunch of ideas or you can pull stuff out of your butt on the fly to react to what players are doing, whether it's weather or anything else, then great. But sometimes you want to roll and find out random, or sometimes you just want to look at a list of options and be like, oh, I got an idea for that thing. I didn't think of that before.
now Parks has given me, a gargantuan animated crab used as a ship. So
Oh,
now
that would be cool.
Now I need to see if I can find a 10-inch crab
Mm-hmm.
that I can.
Oddly enough, I want to say I've seen a picture from your table of a giant crab, but you have so many things. It could have been
My giant crab is this big.
He had it in reach. It was just like,
I had this on hand from when we played those bastards
for Sheldon.
so that Galatian could enlarge Sheldon. That's why, and it's been sitting here ever since.
I know, it's just cute. It's just fun to me that it's like, oh yeah, the thing right here.
But so giant crab is just like, oh, I'm twice as big as a person.
Oh, you got to use Aldani too. One of my favorites, the lobster. They taste delicious with.
Well, I'm actually trying to get access to some things that I found online as a new type of people to.
Okay, cool.
But at least for the time being, I will keep it sealed.
Well, you have boundless creativity. I'm sure every session will be pretty exciting and unique for the players.
Yeah, I have to kind of come up with my outline of what things I want to do in what order, and be able to move around based on weather and how things go. But it's going to be interesting to try and see like how do I get descriptive with you're on the open sea.
Here, I'll give you one tip that because it always like scares the crap out of me when I see it like in movies and stuff, like the terror of like a storm when ships are like and they're like almost vertical and stuff, like just a mundane storm. It's like that looks so scary because like you would just literally fall out like backwards out of the boat.
Yeah.
And then you see like, even in real life, and I've seen art and stuff where it's like there's a whale inside there, but it's also D&D, so it could be like a kraken that you see like in the darkness of the waves, all like thunder and lightning's going all around. That shit's scary as hell, man.
Now I guess the only question I have left to try and figure out is, are there any aquatic parasites that I need to
oh yeah, absolutely,
against the party? So on that note, we are past 9:00. We are going to be, or at least past the hour mark. We're going to be back tomorrow night playing some Cypher System, our unmasked heroes game of Nobody's Heroes. What are we called now? What did you name
the
it?
Crime Ruiners.
So we'll have some fun with some absolute hilarity B-list heroes tomorrow. Dave is going to be back with some live chats this week.
And we got our Kickstarter for Mage Forge still going strong, with a link down in the description for a deluxe box of 250 tarot-sized magic item cards from our minds and brains and hearts and games. Cheers.
So, make sure you check that out. We're already funded and what have you, so you'll absolutely be able to get your copy. I've been enjoying the art directing for that process, and we've got 3 artists working like mad to get them going. So
fantastic stuff.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.